Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Risk Matrix. Here we are, myself, Dr. Martin, and Mr. James Junkin over there to my left. He
It is
is,
still hot.
it is still hot. 100% it's still hot. It's still
I'm not gonna
summer.
complain, though. Many people complain about the heat. I'm not complaining about the heat. I like it hot.
Complain when it's cold, James. I mean, that's what I keep telling my kids. My kids, it's so hot. It's so hot. I'm like, yeah, but we could have 3 feet of snow like we did last winter, and I'm not a snow person. So,
That's right. But man, the weather's been crazy. We've got half the country's on fire. If we're not on fire, we're getting hit by tornadoes, and it's
yeah.
nuts, man. Nuts.
I talked to one of my clients yesterday and I said, boy, work is up for window washers in Boston because the soot and ash that's coming from the fires is clouding the views all over the city. So, uh, kudos to the window washers because they're going to have a big job cleaning this up when it's all over.
Hey, I don't have any data on this, but does it seem to you like OSHA's been more active lately?
I've read some articles that OSHA's been more active lately and that they're really kind of hammering down, at least in our area, on respiratory protection in silica, big time, big
Hmm.
time.
Interesting. We just had more calls here recently about clients who've run afoul of OSHA through employee complaints or in response to workplace incidents, and then a few related to national emphasis programs. But it seems like a day doesn't go by that there's not some article that's come out through some local media of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration having to open an investigation as the result of a workplace accident that injured workers.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to mention is we're seeing a lot of heat cases out here too. And I put out an
Really?
article on heat just recently, and in fact, a white paper. If people are interested, and that's posted on my LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
let's
I
start off.
thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So let's start off and do rip from the headlines. What do you got?
All right, rip from the headlines. OSHA investigating a workplace incident that injured workers at Dairy Farms of America in Pennsylvania. And guess what? Arc flash. Arc flash injured four workers. One person was taken from the plant by a medical helicopter, and the second was taken by ambulance. Two were treated on site for minor injuries. It's surprising to me. I'm not an electrician. Electricity scares me. I like electricity because I love air conditioning, right? Air conditioning is great. I'm not anti electricity, but it seems to me that we have an inordinate amount of arc flash, arc blast, and then when you start looking at it and investigating those types of incidents, I've only had two of those in my career that I had to investigate. They all have some common features, and one of them is the procedure wasn't followed. But I don't know. Have you done a bunch of arc flash work?
I recently had a client that does excavation that contacted a line, and OSHA was there right away. Um, but yeah, I mean, the arc flash incidents that I see are basically construction related, not so much general industry. I think you probably see more general industry stuff than I
Yep.
do. Um, but people don't realize that when OSHA says 10 feet away or plus 4 inches for every kV, that they really mean it, because it's a serious problem, and you don't want to be caught in those incidents. I know that you had a case recently where piece of equipment touched a line, and
Yeah,
the
that was a
result's not
horrible
pretty.
case. Horrible case. Horrible case. A lot of the ones we see are during maintenance activities, turnarounds, where people are opening electrical panels, particularly do lockout tagout, and they don't have on they didn't follow the right procedure. They don't have on the rated PPE. The arc boundary was not clearly identified that workers need to be beyond. So a lot of different things. Don't turn this into arc flash. NFPA 70E, of
Podcast.
course, right? But it's something I'm not strong in, right? I'm just not. not strong with electrical. But I think the takeaway from this is, hey, some of these incidents tend to repeat themselves, right? Workplace incidences in a whole without a well defined investigation and root cause analysis and corrective action plan tend to repeat themselves. And you put out an article on the 4th of July, right? And it's entitled Untangling Direct, Underlying, and Root Causes After a Workplace Incident. So let's talk about that article.
Yep. So I'm going to caption that article, right? The subcaption should be why most investigations stop too soon. Okay. Um, I think we can agree on this. Every workplace incident tells a story, right? But there's a tendency for people, whether it be the safety professional, management, operations, whatever, to pick the last link in the chain because the immediate action or condition that produced the injury, it it's an easy mark, right? It's easy to pick out, and it closes the file. Okay, so I guess the gist of the article is we stop too soon. This happens a lot. Okay, and the reason that I think we need to go beyond that direct cause and close the file and just move on with things is because this is why incidents repeat themselves is we're not looking at the underlying causes. We're not looking at the contributing causes. We're not looking at the other things and mitigating those as well.
These are what I call in my investigations the proximate cause. Worker drove telehandler into energized power line. That was the cause of the accident. But what were the causal factors that contributed to that? And that's a more difficult conversation and requires a little bit more um, objective skill set because you're examining the contributions of not only people but the way we develop the management system to begin with.
So the first thing is what happened, right? Because you even though you're saying that's the direct cause, right? That the worker drove into the power line, direct cause, right? What happened? That tells me what happened. It doesn't tell me what let it happen.
That's right. That's right. So I don't think we do a good job training people to do investigations. We teach
Agreed.
a lot about compliance, but doing a good incident investigation requires a skill set not to fall into the trap of the obvious cause, which is your first paragraph, your first section, right? And we see this in the corrective actions during the assessments that we do at Veriforce. The corrective actions and the root cause, it's always employee violated whatever rule, and the corrective action is always, everybody say it in the back, retraining, right? Well, billions of dollars have been spent on retraining workers, yet we still have incidents. We still have not significantly addressed the serious injury and fatality trend. And I think that's probably because we're focusing, as you said, on the last link in the chain. What the immediate action or condition that produced the injury or the damage, right? Because that's the simplest. And so, in order to address the true causes of SIFs, we need to start moving beyond these simplistic answers in incident investigation.
You've got to have uh, the right facts, right? Which means you have to gather the right things before you start any idea of like what caused this, what contributed to the cause of this, whatever. You need to collect the right things. You need witness statements. You need pictures. I often have clients that want me to render an opinion on something, but they don't want me to go to the site, right? And a lot of times going to the site will help me put things together if I'm doing the incident investigation. So, you can't do that in a vacuum. I would say to every safety professional, if you can get to the site, you should get to the site and look at those things. So what other things, James, before you start anchoring your investigation on what happened and what the probable contributing causes were, what other kinds of things are you telling people to kind of collect?
Well, the first thing you need to do is try to not fast forward to the conclusion, and that requires extreme amount of discipline because the trap of the obvious is the enemy of a true root cause analysis, right? So what I find is many times companies have a form. We have a form to fill out. We got to fill out this form. We give the form to employees. They fill out these statements. You know, um, I don't find a lot of value in that. In my process, the way I do it is we conduct the interview, then we fill out the form.
Follow the
Uh,
facts, not the template.
That's right. I need them to understand the line of questioning that they're going to get before we start putting things down on paper, right? That helps witnesses recall the events. That helps them understand what's important. Uh, Not necessarily coaching them to a conclusion or leading them in their statements, but it helps you identify all these other causal factors that are important. Okay, what did you see? What happened? Well, Jimmy stuck his finger in a place he shouldn't have, and it was amputated. Okay, but why did he do that? And what were the other contributing factors to that? To get to that point, we need to talk about what was your orientation training like? What was the job hazard analysis, job safety analysis like that day? Have you been mentored on this task? Were there incidents before? And we could go on and on and on. So to me, that's all part of the factual gathering beyond just the sequence of events that led up to the incident.
Right. So in my mind, what you want to get to, right, is when you put your corrective actions at the end of everything, when you have your whole incident done and you've looked at everything, you have the direct cause, and you have all the things in the middle, when you put the combined corrective actions in place, does the fix or fixes that you put in place make this one incident go away if you had done it beforehand, or does it make the whole category of incidents go away, right? And making the whole category demands go away, demands that you look at more than just that first direct cause, right? It demands that you look at all the things, because all of those other factors, all of those other causal factors will help you tamp down um, whole categories of incidents.
I think that's a good point. I mean, even in cases of clear, unpreventable employee misconduct, that we've been able to successfully defend clients against OSHA citations. That doesn't mean that there weren't deficiencies within the management system that were causal factors that led up to this incident. It just meant that they did not violate an OSHA standard or regulation that OSHA could cite you for, right? But that, again, I think your article focusing on the underlying causes, that gap is why we see repeat incidents in organizations.
Mhm. Because most incidents that are repeat incidents, the things that change are not the direct cause. The things that well, they do, right? But most often, the things that change are these things down below that are kind of percolating in the background, right? And if you stop this, maybe the direct cause next time wouldn't cause the incident.
And I would also say understanding and documenting why the corrective action's in place. There's a lot of turnover in safety. There's a lot of turnover in employees. Uh, Even in cases, for example, like union construction, where we're calling the hall, we may not get the same folks we had last time. So people forget about incidents. Dr. Kletz had a great quote that stuck in my mind. Organizations do not have memory. People have memory. And when people leave the organizations, the memory of that incident fades over time. So we have a corrective action that we put in place. 5 years from now, people are wondering, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. Why are we putting this tape on this floor here? Pull the tape up, right? This is dumb. It's an expenditure we don't need to have. And next thing you know, we have a repeat of the incident. So the best example is BP. The horrendous accident in Texas City in 2005. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars in improving their safety management systems. And yet 5 years later, the Deepwater Horizon incident occurred, and the Chemical Safety Board said that some of the same underlying organizational culture problems that were in place in the Texas City incident reemerged in the Deepwater Horizon incident. And that's because of the failure to address deep-seated systemic issues within the management system.
So let me say this and see what your take on it is, right? I feel like accident investigation or incident investigation, figuring out root causes and underlying causes, that's one end of the rope, right? The other end of the rope is risk assessment, right? That's our JHAs, it's our pre-test planning, it's all those
Don't
other
get me
things,
started
right?
on that. You're gonna get me fired up.
If
You're gonna get me fired
if
up.
if
I'm
these
gonna say
things
some
are
stuff that
disconnected,
I'm gonna say some things that's gonna make hurt people's feelings.
yeah, well, if these things are disconnected, right? The same lessons happen repeatedly, right? Because you can't have one without the other. You can do a great investigation, you can look at all these things, and this goes to your institutional learning, right? If you don't circle back and put it into your risk assessment documents, your JHAs and whatever, and keep doing that circle and memorializing it um, in our risk assessment and considering it in our risk assessment, then we're doomed to repeat the same things again,
Okay,
regardless of whether or not we find the
in your
underlying causes.
experience, including fatality investigations you've investigated, okay? Your experience, how many of those incidents had a truly good job hazard analysis in place?
0.
I haven't run across one that had a really good
Well,
job hazard analysis.
that makes my point then, doesn't it? Right? You can't
Exactly.
disconnect the 2.
So that wasn't the first incident that company had had. That might have been the worst incident this company's had, but it's not the first incident this company's had. So that's another example. When we pull the JHA out, we can blame the worker and say he wrote a really bad JHA, or we can address the issue, which is we do a pretty poor job of training workers how to do JHAs or JSAs or pre-task plans, whatever you want to call it. And you see a pattern over the last 3 years where, we're talking about bug bites and slip, trips, and falls and things of that nature. But we never addressed one of the root causes of all the incidents, which was we didn't really identify the hazards. So where in the corrective action plan did someone identify and say we need to improve on how we identify hazards and how we control them in the workplace? We never did, which is why these incidents keep happening.
Right. So that's for another show, right? I mean, honestly, I think you can't have one without the other. They both inform each other, right? You have a JHA in place. It should inform the incident investigation process. Why are people doing the things that they're doing? Did we not do a good risk assessment in the beginning? You know, how does this contribute to the underlying causes? And again, all those things feed back into the JHA, right? And I would say, you asked me who has a good JHA. I think none, but some of them do have JHAs, and to that end, they could be improving those JHAs after the fact. So, I mean, I think they have the foundation there, that some of my clients have had the foundation there. They just need to feed that back into the process. And the only way to do that is have a good shepherd. And you know whose responsibility that is.
Yeah, it's always management. It's always management, right? But that we could have 4 episodes about the resourcing of the safety department. There are a lot of things safety department needs to be doing, but this is where our senior operations leaders need to be looking not just to see do people have a JSA or JHA, but is it one that we've done everything we could to identify all the hazards and put what reasonable controls are in place. And I don't want to hijack this and take it down a stream, but that's just evidence of what you should be looking at, as you pointed out in your article.
So let me say this in closing, right? The best investigations are the ones you have to run less often. Strong incident investigation, risk assessment already caught the problem first.
I like that. Say it again.
So the best investigations are the ones you have to run less often because a strong pre-incident risk assessment already caught the problem first.
I like that. I
So
like that.
that's what I have to say about that, right? Like Forrest Gump.
Huh.
So that being said, James, why don't we talk a little bit about our sponsor and how grateful
Hey,
we are?
100%. You know, we couldn't do this without the support and sponsorship and mentorship of Veriforce. Veriforce has been outstanding in sponsoring our podcast over these last 4 years. Shout out to them. They live the commitment daily to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs, and this is one of the evidences of that is supporting our podcast and allowing us to have this platform to talk about issues that are important to safety professionals and people in risk. So thank you, Verifor.
So, what do you want to hear about? Hit us up. We're both very active on LinkedIn. Our phone numbers, our emails, our LinkedIn pages are all out there. So, if you have ideas for the show, things you want us to shout out and talk about, if you want to come on, let us know, and we'd love to talk about the issues that hit home in your workplace. Um, and James,
Hey,
want
I
to take
had
us in?
somebody the other day accept my challenge to debate safety culture versus organizational culture.
Let's
That'd
do
be
it.
great. Try and
Let's
get them
do it.
on the show. Be a great conversation. But hey, thank you for all who follow us, who share our the podcast, who like, who subscribe. Again, I want to challenge you today. If you learned something today that improved your knowledge of occupational safety and health, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, throw a comment down in the comment section. If we gave you something to think about that you haven't thought about before, hey, hit that like button, hit subscribe. It really helps us here at the Risk Matrix Podcast. We appreciate your support. Your mama wants you to listen to the Risk Matrix, but please do so safely. Please do so safely. You don't have to watch the video cast and drive. You can just listen to the audio. I was listening to one of our episodes the other day and caught myself trying to glance at my phone while we was riding down the road. Big no no there. But we all have areas to improve on. But again, thank you very much. Until next time, keep bringing those workers home safe from high hazard jobs. Roll Tide out.